I was looking at these financial disclosures this morning, and honestly, I thought there was a typo in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You usually see politicians getting richer while they're in office. We sort of expect that, cynically enough, but this is something else entirely.
It definitely breaks the curve. Usually wealth accumulation in Congress is a slow, steady climb. Maybe they buy some NVIDIA stock at the right time.
Right.
But what we are seeing with Representative Ilhan Omar and her husband is, well, it's a vertical line.
A vertical line. I mean, we're talking about a negative net worth, student loans, no real assets, suddenly turning into a reported household fortune of up to $30 million.
In a single year.
And the catalyst isn't a lottery win or a massive inheritance. It's tied to businesses that, when you actually try to find them,
Yeah.
they don't seem to exist.
And that's the part that has the Oversight Committees waking up. I mean, we have a winery with no wine for sale and a venture capital firm with practically zero income, yet they are being valued at millions and millions of dollars on federal forms.
So today we are digging into what's being called the phantom fortune of Ilhan Omar and Tim Mynett. And more importantly, we need to talk about why House Oversight Chairman James Comer thinks this might be more than just, creative accounting.
He thinks it might be a massive fraud.
And he's not just talking.
No. And we have to be precise here because the numbers are staggering. Chairman Comer has officially launched an inquiry demanding records regarding Tim Mynett's businesses.
Okay, so what was the final trigger?
It was Omar's latest financial disclosure, the one filed in May of 2025. That was the one that set off all the alarm bells.
Let's get into that filing, because this is where that typo feeling really comes in. What are the headline numbers here?
So, okay, you've got a winery. It's called East A2. In the 2023 disclosures, its reported value was, pretty modest.
Modest.
We're talking roughly $50,000. But in the filing covering 2024, that value jumped to as much as $5 million.
Wait, 100 times increase.
In 1 year.
100 times. And believe it or not, that's the smaller one. The smaller one.
Yeah. Then you have Rose Lake Capital, which is a venture capital firm. It went from a value of essentially zero, the filing said, between $1,000 and $1,000.
So nothing.
Basically nothing. It went from that to a reported value of potentially $25 million.
Okay, stop right there. I have to play devil's advocate for a second. We've seen tech companies, explode in value overnight. Maybe they got in on the ground floor of some AI startup.
Yeah.
Maybe Mynett is just a venture capital genius.
That would be the charitable explanation, sure. But here is the problem. In the real world of business, valuation usually correlates with revenue, or at least some kind of activity.
Like something has to be happening.
If your company is worth $25 million, it's usually because you're generating cash or you have massive investors pouring money in.
And are they?
No. And this is the smoking gun in the disclosure forms themselves. Despite reporting these massive asset values up to $30 million combined, Mynett reported almost zero actual income from them.
What does almost zero actually mean in dollars?
For the winery, the $5 million winery, he reported income between $5,000 and $15,000.
Okay.
For the $25 million venture capital firm.
Let me guess.
Zero.
$0.
Not a single cent.
That makes no sense. You can't tell the government, I owe a company worth $25 million, but then say, oh, but it didn't pay me anything. That's just not how valuation works. If you have a legitimate asset worth that much, there is a paper trail. There are investors, term sheets, liquidity events. Something.
Exactly. And that disconnect is precisely why James Comer is citing serious public concerns. You just don't see a 3,500% spike in asset value without some kind of corresponding business event. Unless, of course, the value is being inflated artificially for some reason.
Which brings us to the phantom part of this story. Let's talk about the winery, EST Crew. Because if a winery is worth $5 million, I assume I can go out and buy a bottle of their Pinot Noir.
You would assume wrong.
Is it exclusive? Like one of those members-only clubs?
It's more like a members-none club. I mean, investigations by WebPro News and Fox News found that the business is essentially a ghost.
A ghost?
Yeah, the website is dormant, the phone lines are dead, their social media accounts haven't posted in ages.
So it's a winery where you can't buy wine.
Correct. There is no verified active sales footprint anywhere. If they are moving $5 million worth of product, they are doing it completely invisibly.
But surely they have some assets, right?
Right.
Like barrels, grapes, a warehouse, something tangible.
Well, let's look at the bank accounts. This is where the story goes from suspicious to just plain absurd. We have data on the account balances for these entities as of February 2024.
Okay, how much cash does a $5 million winery keep on hand?
Get ready for this. $650.
600. Wait, you mean 600,000?
No, $650 total.
Wow.
And it gets worse. A related entity, ES Seat Ventures, had 5 cents in its account, a nickel. And Rose Lake Inc., that's the corporate entity behind the $25 million VC firm, had $10.
$10.
$10.
Okay, I have to pause here. If I walked into a bank to get a mortgage, and I told the loan officer, I own a business worth $25 million, and then they checked my account and saw I had enough money for a fast food value meal,
Yeah.
they'd laugh me out of the building, or they'd call the police for fraud.
They certainly would not be giving you the loan. But on a congressional financial disclosure, you can apparently just write these numbers down. And this isn't just, our observation. Mynett's own business partner, a guy named Will Haler, admitted to the Minnesota Reformer that the winery is living invoice to invoice.
Invoice to invoice is just code for we are broke.
It's precisely what it is. So you have a situation where the bank accounts are empty, the product is unavailable, but the federal forms claim the family is sitting on a multi-million-dollar fortune.
It really sounds like a shell game.
Yeah.
You inflate the assets on paper to make the balance sheet look healthy, maybe to secure loans or leverage it somewhere else.
Or to hide the true source of funds. Or maybe to create the appearance of legitimate wealth to explain, lifestyle changes. We don't know the why yet, but the what is incredibly damning.
You mentioned the business partner, Will Haler. I feel like we need to talk about who Tim Mynett is doing business with, because usually when you see financial anomalies like this, the people involved aren't exactly Boy Scouts.
No. Will Haler is a longtime Democratic operative. He's been in the trenches of political consulting for years. But lately, his resume reads more like a criminal indictment than a LinkedIn profile.
What's he accused of?
Fraud. And not just, minor accounting errors. We are talking about allegations of Ponzi scheme-style fraud.
Okay, give us the details.
There's a lawsuit from a restaurant owner named Naeem Mode. The allegation is that Haler and Mynett approached him with a sure-thing investment. They told him if he wired them $300,000, he would get a 200% return in 18 months.
A 200% return. I mean, anyone in finance will tell you that's a massive, massive red flag.
It's a huge red flag. They allegedly promised him $900,000 back. But according to the lawsuit, Maud got his principal back late, and he never saw a dime of the profit.
So they took his money, used it for a year and a half, and then just gave it back when he threatened to sue.
He basically gave them an interest-free loan while they promised him the moon. And that's just one case. There was another situation involving a cannabis scheme, a company called Badlands Ventures. They allegedly owed $1.7 million to marijuana growers in South Dakota.
That is a lot of money to owe to people in the drug trade, legal or not.
And they only paid about $500,000 of it. Eventually, they had to sign a confession of judgment for the remaining $1.2 million.
Which means what, legally?
It means they legally admitted, yes, we owe this money and we haven't paid it. It's an official admission of debt.
And didn't Haler try to run?
That's maybe the most dramatic part. In a bankruptcy case involving Haler, he was accused of trying to flee the country to Dubai to avoid testifying.
Fleeing to Dubai. That is literally the move you make when you know the walls are closing in.
He didn't end up going. He claimed he wanted to do the right thing, but the fact that fleeing to a non-extradition country was even on the table, it tells you everything you need to know about the stability of this whole operation.
So, to recap, Mynett, Ilhan Omar's husband, is in business with a guy accused of fraud who owes millions to cannabis growers and considered fleeing the country. And this is the partnership that supposedly generated $30 million in wealth in 1 year.
That's correct. And remember, these are the same entities holding $10 in the bank. The credibility gap here is just enormous.
Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, maybe Omar doesn't know what her husband is doing, or this is just a one-time thing, we have to look at the history here. Because this isn't the first time Omar and Mynett have mixed money in politics, is it?
No, it is not. In fact, you can draw a straight line from the 2020 election cycle right to today. This is a pattern.
Take us back to 2020, the E Street Group controversy.
Right. So before they were married, while they were allegedly having an affair, which came out in Mynett's divorce papers, Omar's campaign was paying Mynett's consulting firm, the E Street Group, huge sums of money.
How much are we talking?
About $2.8 million. That was roughly a third of her entire campaign budget for that cycle.
So donors were giving money to elect Ilhan Omar, and she was taking a third of that money and handing it to her boyfriend's company.
That's it. It was for, digital consulting, ads, video production, legitimate sounding services on paper. But the optics were just terrible. You are funneling nearly $3 million of campaign cash into a firm owned by your romantic partner.
Was it actually illegal?
Well, the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, ultimately ruled that it wasn't strictly illegal because the firm did seem to do the work. They provided the ads. But it highlighted this massive ethical loophole.
It looks like a way to enrich your own family unit using donor money.
Exactly. It was so bad that even Republicans in Congress tried to pass a law to stop it.
Oh, I remember that. The Omar Act.
That's the one. The Oversight for Members and Relatives Act. It was specifically designed to ban lawmakers from hiring their spouses' firms just to close this exact loophole. Because even if it's technically legal, it's an obvious conflict of interest.
So we have a documented history of funneling millions of dollars into family businesses. And now, a few years later, we have those same family businesses suddenly claiming to be worth tens of millions of dollars with no real explanation. It feels like the sequel to the same movie.
It establishes a pattern of very opaque financial dealings, and that context is crucial. This isn't just a clerical error on a form. It's a continuation of behavior where money moves in mysterious ways around this couple.
So what is the defense? I mean, Ilhan Omar is a sitting congresswoman. She has to say something about all this. How does she explain a $25 million asset with no income and $10 in the bank?
Her defense has been sort of twofold. First, you have the political defense.
The classic playbook.
The classic playbook. She calls the investigation a political stunt and a smear campaign by the MAGA Republicans.
Of course. Attack the accuser.
Right. And then on social media, she insists she isn't wealthy at all. She talks about her student debt, says she doesn't own a home, and claims she is, quote, barely worth thousands.
But that completely contradicts her own sworn financial disclosure. You can't tell Twitter, I'm broke, and tell Congress, my household is worth up to $30 million.
Oh.
I mean, which one is a lie?
And that's where the second defense comes in, the technicality defense.
Okay.
Her office argues that the disclosure forms require them to report the value of the entire business, not just Mynett's personal share of it.
Explain what that means.
They're basically saying, oh, the entity Roselake Capital is worth $25 million, and since Tim is an owner, we have to list the entity's total value.
But that argument just doesn't hold water.
Not really, because even if you are reporting the total value, you still have to justify why the business is worth $25 million in the first place. If the business has $10 in the bank and no revenue, it's not worth $25 million. It doesn't matter if Mynett owns 1% or 100%.
Right. If the pie is made of air, a slice of the pie is still air.
Precisely. It feels like they're relying on the fact that most people don't understand how these complex forms work.
It's gaslighting, is what it is.
And that's why the National Legal and Policy Center has now filed a complaint with the Office of Congressional Ethics. They're basically saying, look, this isn't just a mistake. This is a discrepancy so large that it suggests either massive fraud or a complete fabrication of assets.
And this is why it matters so much. I know people get tired of hearing about political scandals, but just think about the double standard here for a second.
It's that two-tiered system of justice we hear so much about.
Exactly. I mean, imagine you listening to this right now. Imagine you run a small business. You have $10 in your business checking account. Your business partner is being sued for promising 200% returns to investors and not paying them.
And you go and tell the IRS or you tell a bank that your business is worth $25 million.
What happens to you?
You get audited instantly. You get fined. You probably get a visit from the FBI for bank fraud or wire fraud.
Immediately, they would be knocking down your door. But here, we have a member of the squad, a very high-profile politician, doing exactly that, and for a year, nobody blinked.
Until now. And that's the significance of the Comer investigation. It's challenging that old norm that spouses are off limits. It's saying, if you put these numbers on an official government form, you better be able to prove them.
And if they can't prove them, if it turns out this $30 million just doesn't exist,
then you have a false filing on a federal disclosure. That's a crime. Or if the money does exist, but it came from somewhere illicit, remember the partner's debts and, foreign connections, then you have a much, much bigger problem.
So either the money is fake, which is fraud, or the money is real, and we have no idea where it came from, which is terrifying.
Both options are very, very bad.
And that is why we are watching this one so closely. It's not just about one politician. It's about whether the rules apply to the people who write the rules.
Transparency is the bare minimum we should be able to expect. And right now, these finances are about as opaque as it gets.
We'll keep following the investigation as Chairman Comer digs deeper. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Stay skeptical.